Less than inequalities and greater than inequalities will be completed a little bit differently. So we'll begin by discussing less than and less than or equal to inequalities. If an inequality includes a less than or equal to sign, then the result is a single interval centered around 0. So let's say we have the absolute value of x is less than 5. That means the total distance from 0 on the number line is going to be less than a total of 5. So x here could be -4 because the absolute value of -4 would be 4, and 4 is less than 5. And from 0, -4 would be 4 units away from 0, so that would hold. If we were to go to -6 though, the absolute value of -6 is 6, and that is not less than 5. We can also go in the positive direction. So 1 is less than 5, 2, 3, 4, until we get to 5. So we see the values that are included in this. If we start at 0, we can go up to, but not including 5 to the right, or up to, but not including 5 to the left. And these are the values we are describing. Now we see that the values for x are between -5 and +5. So when we have the less than inequality, that lets us know we are dealing with a conjunction. The values of x are between the negative and positive value of the absolute value. This is the same when we have less than or equal to. The only thing that changes is the values at the end are included, but we are still dealing with a conjunction in which x is the values between these two values. So let's look at an example and walk through one together. Solve for x and check the answers. The absolute value of x plus 3 is less than 4. So how would we want to go about solving this question? Step 1, we want to remove the absolute value sign by creating a conjunction with the negative value of the expression. The value of the expression in this case is 4. So we have less than. So we put a second less than sign to the left of the expression. We remove the absolute value signs, and now we have the negative value of the expression on this end of our conjunction. So that gives us -4 is less than x plus 3, which is less than +4. And now we can solve for x. So we want to subtract 3 from all three of these terms. So on the left side, we have -4 minus 3, which gives us -7. In the middle here, that leaves us with x. And on the right side, we have 4 minus 3, which is 1. So that shows us that -7 is less than x, which is less than 1. And we can now check the answer by plugging 4 numbers into the original inequality. The absolute value of x plus 3 is less than 4. So we'll plug in 2 numbers to test the lower end. Since x is greater than -7 but not equal to -7, we'll plug in -7, which should not work. And then we'll plug in -6, since that would be included here, and that should work. So when we plug in -7 for x, that gives us -7 plus 3, which is -4. The absolute value of -4 is 4. Giving us the inequality 4 is less than 4, which is not true. So -7 did not work, which we were expecting. So then we test -6, which would be on the inside here, so that should work. -6 plus 3 is -3. The absolute value of -3 is 3, giving us a true statement, 3 is less than 4. So the left end of this inequality is correct. And now we want to test the right end. So we'll plug in 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. And the absolute value of 3 is 3, giving us the true statement, 3 is less than 4. And now we plug in +1 for x. 1 plus 3 is 4. The absolute value of 4 is 4, giving us the false statement, 4 is less than 4. So by plugging in those 4 numbers, we see that this inequality is correct. And that is how we would go about solving less than absolute value questions. Let's now have you try a few practice questions. Solve for x and check the answers. Question number 1. The absolute value of negative 2x plus 7 is less than 11. Question number 2. The absolute value of 4x minus 1 is less than or equal to 7. In question number 3, the absolute value of 3x minus 6 is less than 15. Pause the video, answer these questions, and then press play when you are ready to begin. Question number 1. Step 1. Remove the absolute value sign by creating a conjunction with the negative value of the expression. The value of the expression is 11. So on the left end of our conjunction, we want to have negative 11. And once we create our conjunction, we now want to solve for x. So we'll begin by subtracting 7 from all three terms. On the left end, we get negative 11 minus 7, which is negative 18. In the middle, we are left with negative 2x. And on the right side, we have 11 minus 7, which is 4. And now we want to remove this coefficient of negative 2. So we divide all three terms by negative 2, giving us negative 18 divided by negative 2, which is 9. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. And since we are dividing by a negative number, we want to reverse our inequality sign from less than to greater than. But we see this is negative 2 is less than x, which is less than 9. So we can turn this inequality around, putting the lower value on the left side and the larger value on the right side. So the answer is negative 2 is less than x, which is less than positive 9. In step 3, we can check the answer by plugging 4 numbers into the original inequality. The absolute value of negative 2x plus 7 is less than 11. We want to plug in 2 numbers to test the left side. So we can plug in negative 2, since that should not work. X cannot equal negative 2. And then we'll plug in negative 1. That's on the inside of this interval, so that should work. When we plug in negative 2 for x, we get negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4. 4 plus 7 is 11. And the absolute value of 11 is 11, giving us the false statement, 11 is less than 11. Then we try negative 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. 2 plus 7 is 9. And the absolute value of 9 is 9, giving us the true statement, 9 is less than 11. So that lets us know that the left side of this inequality is correct. And now we want to plug in 2 numbers to test the right side of this inequality. So we'll plug in 8, which is less than 9, so that should work. And then we'll plug in 9, since that should not work. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus 7 is negative 9. And the absolute value of negative 9 is 9, giving us a true statement, 9 is less than 11. And then we want to plug in positive 9 for x, giving us negative 2 times 9, which is negative 18. Negative 18 plus 7 is negative 11. And the absolute value of negative 11 is positive 11, giving us the false statement, 11 is less than 11. So after plugging in those 4 numbers, we see this is the correct inequality. Negative 2 is less than x, which is less than 9. Let's now have a look at question number 2. We were given the absolute value of 4x minus 1 is less than or equal to 7. So step 1, remove the absolute value sign by creating a conjunction with the negative value of the expression. The expression has a value of 7, so creating a conjunction with the negative value would be negative 7 on the left side, giving us negative 7 is less than or equal to 4x minus 1, which is less than or equal to positive 7. And now step 2, we can solve for x. So we'll begin by adding 1 to all 3 terms. On the left side, that gives us negative 7 plus 1, which is negative 6. In the middle, we have 4x. And on the right side, we have 7 plus 1, which is 8. And now to remove this coefficient of positive 4, we want to divide all three terms by 4, giving us negative 6 divided by 4, which is negative 1.5, or negative 1.5. We have x in the middle now. And on the right side, we have 8 divided by 4, which is 2. So we see the answer to question number 2 is negative 1.5 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to positive 2. And we want to check the answer by plugging 4 numbers into the original inequality. The absolute value of 4x minus 1 is less than or equal to positive 7. So we'll plug in 2 numbers to test the left end. We'll plug in negative 2 since that should not work. And then we'll plug in negative 1.5 since x can equal negative 1.5. When we plug in negative 2 for x, that gives us 4 times negative 2, which is negative 8. Negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. And the absolute value of negative 9 is 9, giving us the false statement 9 is less than or equal to 7. Then we plug in negative 1.5 for x. 4 times negative 1.5 is negative 6. Negative 6 minus 1 is negative 7. And the absolute value of negative 7 is 7, giving us the true statement 7 is less than or equal to 7. So by plugging in negative 2 and negative 1.5, we see that the left side of this inequality works. So now we want to test the right side. X is less than or equal to 2. So we want to plug in 2 to make sure it works. And then we'll plug in 3 to make sure that that does not work. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 1 is 7. And the absolute value of 7 is 7. Giving us the true statement, 7 is less than or equal to 7. And then when we plug in 3 for x, we get 4 times 3, which is 12. 12 minus 1 is 11. And the absolute value of 11 is 11, giving us the false statement, 11 is less than or equal to 7. So after plugging in those 4 numbers, we see that this is the correct inequality. Negative 1.5 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 2. And now let's go over question number 3. The absolute value of 3x minus 6 is less than 15. So step 1, remove the absolute value sign by creating a conjunction with the negative value of the expression. So we have positive 15. So the negative value would be negative 15, giving us our conjunction negative 15 is less than 3x minus 6, which is less than 15. And now step 2, we can solve for x here. So we'll first want to add 6 to all 3 terms. On the left side, we now have negative 15 plus 6, which is negative 9. 3x in the middle. And 15 plus 6 gives us 21 on the right side. And now to remove this coefficient of 3, we want to divide all 3 terms by 3, giving us negative 9 divided by 3, which is negative 3 on the left side. We have x in the middle. And 21 divided by 3 is positive 7. So for question number 3, we get negative 3 is less than x, which is less than 7. And we want to check this answer by plugging 4 numbers into the original inequality. So we first want to plug in 2 numbers to test the left side of this inequality. So we'll plug in negative 3, which should not work. And then we'll plug in negative 2, which should work. 3 times negative 3 gives us negative 9. Negative 9 minus 6 is negative 15. And the absolute value of negative 15 is 15. Giving us the false statement, 15 is less than 15. And now we plug in negative 2 for x, giving us 3 times negative 2, which is negative 6. Negative 6 minus 6 is negative 12. And the absolute value of negative 12 is 12, giving us the true statement, 12 is less than 15. So the left side of this inequality is correct. And now we want to test the right side. So we'll plug in positive 6, since that should work. And then we'll plug in 7, since that should not work. So when we plug in 6 for x, we get 3 times 6, which is 18. 18 minus 6 is 12. And the absolute value of 12 is 12, giving us the true statement 12 is less than 15. And now we plug in 7 for x, giving us 3 times 7, which is 21. 21 minus 6 is 15. And the absolute value of 15 is 15, giving us the false statement 15 is less than 15. So by plugging in those 4 numbers, we see this inequality is correct. So the answer to question number 3 is -3 is less than x, which is less than 7.